Hey crew, it's Pitt and I am back with some more ancient lore. Today we are going to be diving into the perfect sermon. This is from the Corpus Hermeticum, Thrice Great Hermes, and it is the second section, the perfect sermon or the Asclepious. We are going to dive in and see what's up. We will try to do 4 today. I don't know if we'll get through them or not. The perfect sermon or the Asclepious. God, let's see where it starts. Right here. God, O Asclepius, hath brought thee unto us, that thou mayest hear a godly sermon. A sermon such as well may seem of all the previous ones we've uttered, or with which we've been inspired by the divine, more godly than the piety of ordinary faith. If thou with eye of intellect shalt see this word, thou shalt in thy whole mind be filled quite full of all good things. If that indeed the many be the good, and not the one, in which are all, indeed the difference between the two is found in their agreement. All is of a one, or one is all, so closely bound is each to the other that neither can be parted from its mate. But with this diligent attention shalt thou learn from out the sermon that shall follow this. But do thou, O Asclepius, go forth a moment, and call in the one who is to hear. And when he had come on, Asclepius proposed that Ammon too should be allowed to come on. Thereon Thrice Greatest said, There is no cause why Ammon should be kept away from us. For we remember how we have ourselves set down in writing many things to his address, as though unto a son most dear and most beloved. Of physics many things, of ethics too as many as could be. It is, however, with thy name I will inscribe this treatise. But call, I prithee, no one else but Ammon, lest a most pious sermon on so great a theme be spoiled by the omission of the multitude. For 'tis the mark of an unpious mind to publish to the knowledge of the crowd a tractate brimming over with the full greatness of divinity. When Ammon too had come within the holy place, and when the sacred group before was now complete with piety, and with God's goodly presence, to them sunk in fit silence reverently, their souls and minds pendant on Hermes' lips, thus love divine began to speak. The soul of every man, O Asclepius, is deathless, yet not all in like fashion, but some in one way or another. Is not then, O thrice greatest one, each soul of one and the same quality? How quickly thou hast fallen, O Asclepius, from reason's true sobriety! Did not I say that all is one, and one is all, inasmuch as all things have been in the Creator before they were created? Nor is he called unfitly all, and that his members are the all. Therefore, in all this argument keep thou in mind in him who is one, all, or who himself is a maker of all. All things descend from heaven to earth, to water and to air. 'Tis fire alone that is borne upwards giveth life. That which is carried downwards is subservient to fire. Further, whatever doth descend from the above begetteth what floweth upwards, nourisheth. 'Tis earth alone, in that it resteth on itself, that is a receiver of all things, and also the restorer of all genera that it receives. This whole, therefore, as thou rememberest, is that it is of all. In other words, all things, embraced by nature under soul and world, are in perpetual flux, so varied by the multiform equality of all their forms, that countless kinds of well-distinguished qualities may be discerned. Yet with this bond of union, that all should be seen as one, and from one all. That, then, from which the whole cosmos is formed, consisteth of 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and air. Cosmos itself is one, its soul is one, and God is one. Now lend to me the whole of thee, all that thou canst in mind, all that thou skillst in penetration, for that the reason of divinity may not be known except by an intention of the senses, like to it. 'Tis like as to the torrent's flood, down dashing headlong from above with all-devouring tide, so that it comes about, that by the swiftness of its speed it is too quick for our attention, not only for the hearers, but also for the very teachers. And so ends part 1. And Again, we have the iteration that God is all is God, and there is no separation. God is me, God is you, God is the space between me and you. God is the space between me and you. There is nothing that is not God, and there's nothing that can be separated from God. God is both good and evil, and He is the balance thereof that we are to strive for here on this mortal coil. Life is not about exclusion. Life is about inclusion. It is about learning the lessons and doing the things that are beneficial to creation and yourself. That is what we just went through in the first part of this. Let's dig into the second. Heaven, then, God sensible, is the director of all bodies. Bodies increasings and decreasings are ruled by sun and moon. But He who is the ruler of heaven and of the soul as well, of all things within the cosmos, He is God, who is the maker of all things. For from all those that have been said above, over which the same God rules, there floweth forth a flood of all things, streaming through the cosmos and the soul, of every class and kind throughout the nature of all things. The cosmos hath, moreover, been prepared by God as the receptacle of forms of every kind. Forethinking nature by these kinds of things, He hath extended cosmos unto heaven, by means of the four elements, all to give pleasure to the eye of God. And all dependent from above are subdivided into species in the fashion which I am to tell, the genre of all things, company within their own species, so that the genus is a class in its entirety, and the species is part of a genus. The genus of the gods will, therefore, make the species of the gods out of itself. In like way, too, the genus of the demons and of men, likewise of birds and of all animals, the cosmos doth contain within itself, brings into being species like itself. There is, besides, a genus other than the animals, a genus, or indeed a soul, in that it's not without sensation, in consequence of which it finds both happiness in suitable conditions and pines and spoils in adverse ones. I mean, the class of all things on the earth which owe their life to the sound state of roots and shoots, of which the various kinds are scattered throughout the length and breadth of earth. The heaven itself is full of God. The genera we have just mentioned, therefore, occupy up to the spaces of all things whose species are immortal. For that a species is part of a genus, as man, for instance, of mankind, and that of a part must follow its own class's quality. From which it comes to pass that though all genera are deathless, all species are not so. The genus of divinity is in itself and in its species also deathless. As for the genre of other things, as to their genus, they too are everlasting, for though the genus perish in its species, yet it persists through its fecundity in being born, and for this cause its species are beneath the sway of death, so that man mortal is mankind immortal. And yet the species of all genera are interblended with all genera, some which have previously been made, some which are made from these. The latter, then, which are being made, either by gods or demons or by men, are species, all most closely like to their own several genera. For that it is impossible that bodies should be formed without the will of God, or species to be configured without the help of demons, or animals to be taught and trained without the help of men. Whatever of the demons, then, transcending their own genus, are, by chance, united with a species, by reason of the neighborhood of any species of the godlike class, these are considered like to gods. Whereas the species of the demons, which continue in the quality of their own class, these love men's rational nature, and occupy themselves with men, and are called demons proper. Likewise it is the case with men, and even more so. Diverse and multiform, the species of mankind, and coming in itself from the association spoken of above, it of necessity doth bring about a multitude of combinations of all other species, and almost of all things. Wherefore doth man draw nigh unto the gods, if he have joined himself unto the gods with godlike piety by reason of his mind, whereby he is joined to the gods, and nigh unto the demons, it is he that is joined unto them as well. Whereas those men who are contented with the mediocrity of their own class and the remaining species of mankind, will be like those unto the species of whose class they themselves joined. And so ends part 2. And what we got from this one was that although you individually may die, mankind will survive, right? That even though the body, the flesh suit, may go away, the overarching continuance of your progeny will continue you for eternity. That is, in basic, what we got right here. This was part of you is divine in nature. Part of you is earthly in nature. Right? We talked about the Trinity and how it is the body, it is the soul, and it is the spirit, right? The body is the flesh suit, the part that you navigate. The soul is the eternal part that rides in your third eye, and it's the part that makes the decisions to go up and down the stack, and it's the part that makes the choices on what you are to do in your life. And the spirit is the part that allows that to happen. It is the breathing part of your life. It is the heartbeat part of your life. It is the things that actually move. When you make the decision to pick something up, it is the part that makes your hand move. When you make the decision to change your life, it is the part that makes the change happen. That is the Holy Spirit. It is the Spirit. It is the third part of man. It is the access to the divine becoming. And now we are going to dive into part 3. Right? 1, 2, 3. Let me make sure I got it right. And part 3 is going to be, it is for reasons such as these, Asclepious, man is a mighty wonder, an animal meet for our worship and our respect. For he doth pass in God's nature as though he himself were God. The genus also knows the genus of the demons, as though men knew he had a common origin with them. He thinketh little of the part of human nature in him, from confidence in the divineness of his other part. How much more happy is the blend of human nature than of all the rest? Joined to the gods by his cognate divinity, the man looks down upon the part of him by means of which he's common with the earth. The rest of these things, to which he knows he's kin, by reason of the heavenly order in him, he binds unto himself with bonds of love, and thus he turns his gaze to heaven. So then, man hath his place in the more blessed station of the midst, so that he loves all those below himself, and in his turn is loved by those above. He tills the earth, he mingles with the elements by reason of the swiftness of his mind. He plunges into the sea's depths by means of its profundity. He puts his value on all things. Heaven seems not too high for him, for it is measured by the wisdom of his mind, as though it were quite near. No darkness of the air obstructs the penetration of his mind. No density of earth impedes his work. No depth of water blunts his sight. Though still the same, yet is he all, and everywhere he is the same. Of all these genera, these species which are animal have many roots, which stretch from the above below, whereas those which are stationary, these from the one living root, send forth a wood of branching greenery up from below into the upper parts. Moreover, some of them are nourished with a twofold form of food, while others with a single form. Twain are the forms of food for soul and body, of which all animals consist. Their soul is nourished by the ever-restless motion of the world. Their bodies have their growth from foods drawn from the water and the earth of the inferior world. Spirit, with which they are all filled, being interblended with the rest, doth make them live. Sense being added, and also the reason, in the case of man, which hath been given to man alone, as a fifth part out of the ether. Of all the living things God doth adorn, extend, exalt the sense of man alone unto this understanding of the reason of divinity. But, since I am impressed to speak concerning sense, I will a little further on set forth for you the sermon on this point. For that it is most holy and most mighty, not less than in the reason of divinity itself. But now I'll finish for you what I have begun, for I was speaking at the start of union with the gods, by which men only consciously enjoy the gods' regard. I mean whatever men have won such rapture that they have obtained a share of that divine sense of intelligence which is the most divine of senses, found in God and in man's reason. Are not the senses of all men, thrice greatest one, the same? Nay, my Asclepious, All have not one true reason, but wildly rushing in pursuit of reason's counterfeit, they never see the thing itself, and are deceived, and this breeds evil in their minds, and thus transforms the best of animals into the nature of a beast, and manners of the brutes. But as to sense and all things similar, I will set forth the whole discourse when I explain concerning spirit. For man is the sole animal that is twofold. One part of him is simple, the man, essential, as the Greeks say, but which we call the form of the divine similitude. He also is fourfold, that which the Greeks called hylic, which we call cosmic, of which is made the corporeal part, in which is vested what we have just said is divine in man, in which the Godhead of mind alone, together with its kin, that is, the pure mind senses, findeth home and rest itself within its own self, as though shut in the body's walls. And so ends the third section, and this is where we come to understand that man is separated from the animal kingdom in a very specific way. We have the ability to reason, right? Not everybody takes advantage of this, and if you don't believe that, you should check out social media sometime, because it is full of people not choosing to be educated at all. It is full of people not choosing to do the right thing. It is full of people choosing the wrong things, right? And so we see quite clearly that logic and reason is not given to everyone. Everyone thinks they have it, but not everyone does. True logic and knowledge is the acceptance that you probably don't know, that there probably is more that you can learn on the situation, that you may even be incorrect, and to be able to incorporate that into yourself. That is reason. Now, I believe in the division, right? I believe that the soul progresses, that there are steps that you take in your progression. I believe that the reasoning is part of what our current task is on this planet, right? You start off as a single element. Now, this is going to be a little bit hard for some people to follow along with, but I believe that the first dimension of existence is the singular element. You have no use on your own. Consider it like a molecule of dirt. You're just sitting there. In the second dimension, you obtain life. You become incorporated into a compound, right? That means that you are picked up by a plant and you are incorporated into the structure of the plant. And therefore you become part of the plant. And that is the second structure of life. The third structure of life, you get the things that consume the plants and make them a part of themselves. You get the animals, right? Now, that can be directly and indirectly by carnivore and omnivore and herbivore, right? So you either eat the plants itself or you eat the thing that ate the plant, but either way, you are incorporating into yourself the existence of the second. I believe that we are on the fourth level. We have the ability to get up and move and to do and to decide. That makes us different. We have the concept of time, which puts us in the fourth dimension. We do not have control of time, so we are not yet in the fifth dimension. I believe that the next step coming after this soon-to-come reset will be the fifth dimension being open for the soul's progression, and that we will have the choice to either progress or to return and to continue learning the lessons of mortality, but that in the fifth dimension we will have control of time. We will be forward and backwards in time. We will be able to manipulate time in the way that we see the demons described here as doing, right? The demons here are pretty much the same as the angels there. They are the things that actually directed the creation. And now let's get into the fourth. And this is going to be, what then, thrice great one has caused it that man should be planted in the world, and should not pass his life in the highest happiness in that part of the universe where there is God. Rightly thou questionest, my Asclepious, and we pray God that he bestow on us the power of setting forth this reason, since everything depend on his will, and especially those things that are set forth about the highest whole, the reason that is object to our present argument. Hear then, Asclepius. The Lord and Maker of all things, whom we rightly call God, when from himself he made the second God, the visible and sensible. I call him sensible, and not that he hath sensation in himself, For as to this, whether or no he hath himself sensation, we will some other time declare, but that he is the object of the senses of those who see. When, then, he made him first, but second to himself, in that he seemed to him fair, as one filled with the full, but to the full, with the goodness of all things, he fell in love with him as being part of his divinity. Accordingly, in what was so mighty and so fair, he willed that someone else should have the power to contemplate the one he had made from himself, and thereon he made man, the imitator of his reason and his love. The will of God is in itself a complete accomplishment, inasmuch as together with his having willed in one and the same time, he hath wrought it to full accomplishment. And so, when he perceiveth that the essential man could not be lover of all things, unless he clothed them in a cosmic carapace, and shut him within a house of body, and ordered it so that all men should be so, from either nature making him a single blend and fair proportioned mixture. Therefore hath he made man of soul and body, that is, of an eternal and immortal nature, so that an animal thus blended can content his dual origin, admire and worship things in heaven, and cultivate and govern things on earth. By mortal things I do not mean the water or the earth themselves, for these are two of the immortal elements that nature hath made subject unto men, but either things that are by men, or that are in or from them, such as the cultivation of the earth itself, pastures and buildings, harbors, voyagings, intercommunications, mutual services, which are the firmest bonds of men between themselves and that part of the cosmos which consists indeed of water and of earth, but is the cosmos's terrene part, which is preserved by knowledge and the use of arts and sciences, without which things God willeth not the cosmos should be complete. In that necessity doth follow what seems good to God, performance waits upon his will, nor is it credible that that which once hath pleased him will become unpleasing unto God, since he hath known both what will be and what will please him long before. And so we're going to end this one, and it is telling you that there is nothing that happens outside of the will of God, that the will of God is indeed the things that we should be paying attention to, because they are indeed the things that will bring us the best parts of our life. Next up, we are going to dive into the fifth part. But, O Asclepious, I see that thou, with swift desire of mind, art in a hurry to be told how a man can have a love and worship of the heaven, or of the things that are therein. Hear then, Asclepious. The love of God in heaven, together with all of them that are therein, is one perpetual act of worship. No other thing in soul of gods or animals can do this thing save man alone. 'Tis in the adoration, and the praise of men, and in their acts of worship, that heaven and heaven's host find their delight. Nor is it without cause that the Muses' choir has been sent down by the highest deity unto the host of men, in order that, forsooth, the terrene world should not seem too uncultured, had it lacked the charms of measures, but rather that with songs and praise of men accompanied with music, he might be lauded, he who is alone is all, or is the sire of all, and so not even on the earth should there have been an absence of the sweetness of the harmony of heavenly praise. Some, then, though they be very few, endowed with the pure mind, have been entrusted with the sacred charge of contemplating heaven, whereas those men who, from the twofold blending of their nature, have not as yet withdrawn their inner reason from their body's mass, these are appointed for the study of the elements and all that is below them. Thus, man's an animal, not indeed less potent in that he's partly mortal, but rather doth he seem to be all the more fit and efficacious for reaching certain reason, since he has had that mortality bestowed on him as well. For it is plain that he could not have sustained the strain of both unless he had been formed out of both natures, so that he could possess the powers of cultivating earthly things and loving heaven. The reason of a thesis such as this, my Asclepius, I would that thou shouldst grasp, not only with the keen attention of thy soul, but also with its living power, as well. For 'tis a reason that most men cannot believe. The perfect and the true are to be grasped by the more holy minds. Hence, then, will I begin. And so ends part 5, where we find out that not everybody is ready or even worthy of the higher lessons. It has been said already once in here that you should not disseminate the information to those who are not ready. And I am violating that. I do that quite regularly over here, but that is because of my disclaimers and the fact that I point you to the proper things, and you can go to the playlist and be guided in the correct manner into implementing the things for yourself. I have taken it away from the master-apprentice type of a relationship, and I have tried to lay it out as clearly and as plainly as I can. That is what is happening here, but not everybody searches out this knowledge. Not everybody is going to listen to me read this. Not everybody will go back and read this for themselves, even though this information is freely available. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. Part 6. The Lord of Eternity is the first God. The second's cosmos. The man is the third. God is the maker of the cosmos and of all the things therein. At the same time he ruleth all, with man himself, who is the ruler of the compound thing, the whole of which man, taking on himself, doth make of it the proper care of his own love, in order that the two of them, himself and cosmos, may be an ornament each unto the other, so that from this divine compost of man, world, seems most fitly called cosmos in Greek. He knows himself, he knows the world as well, so that he recollects indeed what is convenient to his own parts. He calls to mind what he must use that they may be of service to himself, giving the greatest praise and thanks to God, his image, reverencing, not ignorant that he is, too, God's image, the second one, for that there are two images of God, cosmos and man. So that it come to pass that, since man's in a single structure, in that part of him which doth consist of soul and sense, and of spirit and of reason, he's divine, so that he seems to have the power to mount from it, as it were, the higher elements into heaven. But in his cosmic part, which is composed of fire and water and of air, he stayeth mortal on the earth, lest he should leave all the things committed to his care, forsaken and bereft. Thus humankind is made in one part deathless, and in the other part subject to death while in a body. Now, of that dual nature, that is to say of man, there is a chief capacity, and that is piety, which goodness follows after. And this capacity then, and only then, seems to be perfected, if it be fortified with virtue of despising all desires for alien things. For alien from every part of kinship with the gods are all things on the earth, whatever are possessed from bodily desires, to which we rightly give the name possessions, in that they are not born with us, but later on begin to be possessed by us, wherefore we call them by the name possessions. All such things then are alien from man, even his body, so that we can despise not only what we long for, but also that from which the vice of longing comes to us. For just as far as the increase of reason leads our soul, so far one should be man, in order that by contemplating the divine one should look down upon and disregard the mortal part which hath been joined to him, through the necessity of helping on the lower world. For that, in order that a man should be complete in either part, observe that he hath been composed of elements of either part in sets of 4, with hands and feet, both of them in pairs, and with the other members of the body, by means of which he may do service to the lower, that is to say the terrene, world. And to these parts are added other 4, of sense and soul, of memory and foresight, by means of which he may become acquainted with the rest of the things divine and judge them. Hence it is brought about that man investigates the differences and qualities, effects and quantities of things with critical research. Yet, as he is held back with the too heavy weight of body's imperfection, he cannot properly descry the causes of the nature of all things, which really are the true ones. Man, then, being thus created and composed, and to such ministry and service set by highest God, man, by his keeping suitably the world in proper order, and by his piously adoring God in both becoming and suitably obeying God's good will, man, being such as this, with what rewards thinkst thou he should be recompensed? If that, indeed, since cosmos is God's work, he who preserves and adds unto its beauty by his love, joins his own work unto God's will, when he with toil and care doth fashion out the species, which he hath made already with his divine intent, with help of his own body, with what reward shouldst thou think he should be recompensed, unless it be with that which our forebears have been blessed? That this may be the pleasure of God's love, such is our prayer for you, devoted ones. In other words, may he, when you have served your time, and have put off the world's restraint, and freed yourself from deathly bonds, restore you, pure and holy, to the nature of your higher self, and that is of the divine. Asclepious, rightly and truly, O thrice greatest one, thou speakest, for it is the prize for those who have piously subordinated their lives to God and live to help the world. Trismegistus, to those, however, who have lived in any other fashion impiously, to them both is return to heaven denied, and there is appointed to them migration into other bodies, unworthy of a holy soul and base. So that, as this discourse of ours will show, souls in their life on earth run risk of losing hope of future immortality. But all of this doth seem to be, to some beyond belief, a tale to others, yet again, perchance, the subject for their mirth. For in this life and body it is a pleasant thing, the pleasure that one gets from one's possessions. 'Tis for this cause that spite and envy of its hope of immortality doth clasp the soul in prison, as they say, and keep it down, so that it stays in that part of itself in which it's mortal, nor suffers to know it the part of its divinity. For I will tell thee, as though it were prophetically, that no one after us shall have the single love, the love of wisdom living, which consists in gnosis of divinity alone, the practice of perpetual contemplation and of holy piety. For that the many do confound philosophy with multifarious reasoning. Asclepious, why is it then that the many make philosophy so hard to grasp, and wherefore is it they confound this thing with multifarious reasoning? Trismegistus, 'tis in this way, Asclepious, by mixing it, by means of subtle expositions, which diverse sciences not easy to be grasped, such as arithmetic and music and geometry, but pure philosophy, which doth depend on godly piety alone, should only so far occupy itself with other arts that it may know how to appreciate the working out in the numbers of the four apportioned stations of the stars when they return, and of the course of their procession. Let her, moreover, know how to appreciate the earth's dimensions, its qualities and quantities, the water's depth, the strength of fire, and the effects and the nature of all these, and so let her give worship and praise unto the mind, art, and mind of God. As for true music, to know this is naught else than to have knowledge of the order of all things, and whatsoever God's reason hath decreed. For that order in each several thing, when we set together in one key for all, by means of skilful reason, will make as 'twere the sweetest and truest harmony with God's own song. Asclepious, who therefore will the men be after us? Trismegistus, they will be led astray by sophist cleverness, and turn from the true philosophy, the pure and holy love. For that to worship God with single mind and soul, and reverence the things that he hath made, and to give thanks unto his will, which is the only thing quite full of good, this is philosophy unsullied by the soul's rough curiousness. But of this subject let what has been said so far suffice. And that is going to end part 6, and that's where we're going to wrap up today, because that's a good little chunk of it in one, and they found it a good spot to stop, and so do I. This is talking about the soul's destiny and the soul's determination. There is a lot of contention about this. It depends on who you ask as to what is going to happen. but I'm going to give you my opinion. I believe that the soul is eternal. I believe that the soul was somewheres before it was here. I believe that it was going somewheres after we're done with it, and that we don't have control of that particular part of things. It is almost impossible to know exactly what is going to happen, and then you can only have the experience for yourself. You cannot give it to someone else. So if I have an experience where I experience what is on the other side, I can tell you about it, but I cannot make you feel it. I cannot make you believe it. You have to take me at my word, and that is just how that particular game goes. There are a multitude of descriptions, however, that you can peruse at your own leisure. Our age of information is a wonderful thing. You can Google all kinds of stuff and watch videos on it on YouTube. Some of those videos include near-death experiences where people talk about the things that they experienced when they were almost released from this mortal coil. Some people can say that that is chemical imbalances in the brain, and some of them may very well be. But some of them defy all logic and reason and all explanation, and I believe that is because there is a different part. I believe that the supernatural is real, that there are things that we can't explain, and I am fine with not having all of the answers, right? I seek as many as I can get, but I am fine if I don't get all of them. I believe that the soul is eternal, that it was here and it is going somewhere, and that while it is here for a reason, that you are to learn things. This is intimating that you are to learn to be perfectly pious and to never do wrong, and I don't know about all that. That should be your goal. Your goal should be not to be pious, but to be good. And I know that's going to set off a whole bunch of bells and whistles for people, but you are not to be exclusive from things. You are to find the balance in things, and that includes the virtues and the vices. I have a whole video on the 7 virtues and vices of God. And for every virtue, there is a vice that counterbalances it, right? We'll use lust and, let's use wrath and love. That's a good one. You're not supposed to walk around in wrath. You're not supposed to be mad at everybody and want to hurt everybody and crush everybody. But you are also not supposed to walk around in complete and total love, because people are terrible and they will take advantage of that. You are supposed to use the discernment. You are supposed to be able to know, I'm going to default to love, but if I need to have wrath, it is available to me. You are not to use your wrath in aggressive manners, but it is there for you to use in defense. And it is the same with all 7 of the virtues and vices. You're not supposed to abstain from sex. You're supposed to have sex responsibly. You're not supposed to abstain from drinking. You're supposed to drink responsibly. You're supposed to incorporate into your life all of the temptations and to have control of them and not let them have control of you. You will, regardless of how you either succeed or fail in that, return to divine when you're done. If you have failed, you will have the option to come back, and you will probably take it because the point is to learn the lessons, and you just didn't in this particular instance. It's not an eternal damnation to hell. It is the damnation of separation from the oneness that is God, because that is where you return to. You return to the divine source, and you get all the answers that you wanted in life. You see the parts that you messed up on. You see the parts that your soul still needs to learn. And then you come back and you forget them, and you have to learn them all on your own. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat complicated topic. I know that I hold some unconventional beliefs and that I tend to step on people's toes. It is not something I do intentionally, but it is not something I apologize for. If you like what I'm doing here, let me know down below. Hit me with a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know that you appreciate it. And let me know that you don't appreciate it. If you really appreciate it, hit that super thanks. That will be greatly appreciated. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pit State. Peace.